If I saw you now, could I look in your eyes?
Alright, I know it's been a long time since I made a video, but something important happened and I just felt the need to make a video. And the important thing that happened is Star Wars: The Last Jedi came out. Um, and I just wanted to give a review of it, sort of. I guess that's what this is. Um, I've only seen it twice. I'm hoping to see it at least one more time in the theater, maybe twice. But I don't think any further viewings of it's going to change the way I feel about it. Um, and especially after the second time that I watched it, I basically, like a day or so later, was sitting at home and just wrote an essay about it. I don't know why. There's no one for me to give it to. So, but I did write an essay. And again, like I said, it's sort of a review. It's not really a review of the movie. My review of the movie would be is that it was basically meh. It was okay. It wasn't the greatest thing I ever saw. Definitely not the best Star Wars movie I've ever seen. Um, there are parts of it that I really, really, really liked. Um, but that's kind of what it felt like to me, like a good idea here, a good idea there. But just as a whole, I just wasn't overly impressed with it. Um, but even though this isn't a review, there will definitely be some spoilers to those who haven't seen it. And I only say that because apparently I spoiled The Force Awakens for somebody 2 years after it had came out. So yeah, that's a whole different story and whatnot. But basically, what I've started doing is calling The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi and whatever this third movie um, will be called. I've been calling them the Disney trilogy, just because I think that calling them the Disney trilogy kind of gets to part of what the disconnect is from them. Not blaming Disney, but just since they're the ones who've taken over the property, that's what I'm calling it, the Disney trilogy. Um, and part of that is how these past two movies compares with the original and the prequel trilogies. Um, and just the first thing I think I wanted to look at is that the title of these movies, and as we were first introduced to them, they were called Star Wars. And when we talk about Star Wars, you're talking about a power struggle, one force struggling with another force to gain power or control. And that's basically what the Star Wars are about. And so it's this power dynamic is very important and very crucial. And when you look at the original trilogy, you have these two powers going against each other. You have the Empire versus the Rebellion, and they're very easy to visually see. Okay, that's one side, that's the other side. And as we meet people throughout, we are very quickly can determine um, what side one is against. We see Princess Leia immediately. She's part of the rebellion, and then Luke part of the rebellion. Just we know who they are, and then once we get to characters like Han Solo, it adds a little bit um, mystery to it because we don't know quite whose side he's going to be on until we get to the ends of the story. But it's that power struggle between the Empire and the Rebellion that first shapes the story that we're in, and then also tells the story of the characters as we see them and as we meet them. Now, when we get to the prequel, and I know many people don't like them, but I think that they're starting to come into their own. Um, I think that the prequels really um, beautifully tell the story and the birth of this struggle between Empire and Rebellion. Because you have this story about the Jedi and the Old Republic, and in the back you have this just wonderful story of the Sith and the chess maneuvers and plays that they make to bring down the downfall of both the Jedi and the Old Republic. Now, granted, George Lucas could not write romantic dialogue if it meant saving $1 billion property. And granted, going back to um, the Return of the Jedi, he started playing to a younger and younger audience. But where George Lucas's strength is that he is a master storyteller. I mean, he created Star Wars, and I think that the story he told in these prequels that told the fall of the Jedi, the fall of the Old Republic, that the that the strength of that story supersedes any faults because it is that story that sets up what we know to be the Star Wars stories, the Star Wars. Now, when we get to the Disney trilogy, that power dynamic is all out of balance. There really is no balance there because you get this unnecessary triangle. Now, some of these things I think Disney has tried to um, answer and solve in their other media, but when it comes to the films themselves, it's just not there. And the going back to this triangle, you have the Republic, which is the government that you think is that we assume is set up after Return of the Jedi. Then you have the First Order, who is the um, Imperial remnant, um, but they seem to be as powerful as the Empire was. Almost going back to A New Hope, and then you have the Resistance, who I've never quite fully understood where they stood. I mean, I know they were against the First Order, but where are they in connection with the Republic? Um, and then when we see the Republic being destroyed by the First Order, they're just gone in one shot. Just boom, the system's destroyed, and that's the end of the Republic. They seem to have no other presence in all the galaxy. I don't know if it was a high holiday and everybody was in that system, and so they were all destroyed or what. But it just seems and felt like the Republic was gone in one fell swoop. And it's these unclear power dynamics that I think confuses all the little stories that we see um, in this Disney trilogy. And it goes, the best place to see it is if you listen to Huxley's speech um, before they destroy the Republic. It makes no sense about how the Republic is lying and then they're supporting the. It's like, why are there three of you guys? Why isn't there one against the other? It just becomes very unclear and very confused. And I think it just confuses the entire story by proxy. Um, so there are things that and never mind. There are things that I would do that are different. And some of those things are, well, before I talk about things that I would do different, I'm not saying I would rewrite the movies or redo them. I say at least 95% or more would be the same. Everything, Luke, Kylo, except still, if you watch my Force Awakens movie, I still would not have his name be Ben because that makes no sense to me. His name, Leia would have named him Bail after her father, or the two of them would have named him Obi-Wan and not Ben because Ben was his Tatooine name, and neither one of them were for Tatooine. But again, that's a whole nother rant that I just gave for no reason. Um, but all that, most of the movies would be the same. These are just things I think would have set them up in a way, set this trilogy up in a way that would have made it more engaging and entertaining and just, I don't know, I don't want to say this, but I'm gonna say it. Stay true to what the trilogies have been. Um, and basically it's setting up who is who. The first thing, I would have the Republic be the same as the New Republic, be almost the same as it was in the Republic, and basically the same as what every government is, and that's just a flawed governing system that has its good points and it has its bad points. But it's those bad points that are seized upon by the First Order, who still are an imperial remnant, but I would have them be very small but very strong and influential, and they would consider themselves to be the rebellion against the new republic and the flaws that they see in it. I would also then make Leia be tasked by the Republic, um, since she's been out of government for a while, to lead a group that's sanctioned by the Republic to fight the First Order due to her knowledge and her years of fighting against the Empire. And see, that way you don't have that triangle. You have the Republic and you have this special group, force, fleet, whatever you want to call it, led by Leia fighting the First Order. This part is not really that important, and I don't know, but just I would have Finn's awakening as it stands now, just to be more clouded. His memories come back, and he starts to realize things, and eventually he realizes them too late. And then um, I would get to what I would be called the revealing or the unveiling of the true First Order. And what Disney has done, I think what they will continue to do is cherry pick from the old expanded universe that they get rid of and just take the best parts of those stories and put them into their movies. But that's part of what this is, um, this revealing or unveiling of the true First Order, and that for all this time they have been amassing a huge army at the edge of the galaxy, and basically what they have been raiding on is the aligning of the star of stars, so that they can begin siphoning um, energy from stars to feed Starkiller Base so that it could start making jumps to a certain location where they could then fire and destroy the Republic. And as they were destroying the Republic, the rest of their force, the rest of their army spreads throughout the entire galaxy and thus gets rid of um, what's left of the Republic. And we would then have something happen where uh, Leia's group wouldn't be a part of that, and she would announce that they're now the Resistance. And I think that would have set up um, of The Last Jedi to be a much better movie. Another thing I would have done is I would have revealed Snoke um, to be the actual last viable clone of Palpatine. Um, and I think that would have explained some of the problems that ended up being with Snoke. It would have added more importance to him because again, by the time we got um, to him and Ray and Kylo Ren talking, I was kind of over him because I realized that he was just there to be killed, and all right, and it was just it just kind of spoiled that whole scene for me because he was just another nobody in these films that was getting killed, so I just really didn't care. Um, and then that goes to what I think is the other part, not just the trouble with the power dynamics, but I just think it has so few connections and roots um, in the original trilogy that you just don't care about it. It's not that you just don't. I don't know. I just didn't care about it. What made Rogue One and what made the prequels so good for me, and for that matter, what makes for very good fan films is what they do to connect themselves and to root themselves, not copy, which is basically what they did in The Force Awakens, not copy from the original trilogy, but connect themselves and root themselves in the original trilogy that really makes them feel like they're part of the Star Wars universe. I feel that if you took out Luke, Han, and Leia and a few other important people, like I mean, even the people who they include, like Akbar, Admiral Akbar, it's like both times it was like, oh, that's Admiral Akbar, and it's just because it just felt like he was there to be there. It didn't mean anything, and without Luke, Leia, and Han, this could almost be any other kind or any other science fiction movie. Um, so it makes me question um, what the Disney trilogy is doing to root itself into that original trilogy. Um, the history of it, the I don't know. There's a word that I'm looking for that I can't think of, but there we go. So that's basically my non Last Jedi review. Again, it was okay. Um, yeah, it was okay. There were a lot of good things in it. I liked Rose. I liked her character. Um, the Javier's character. I knew I knew exactly what he was going to do as soon as I saw him. So it was like, okay. Then there was the whole they didn't know what to do with BB-8. He just showed up. A lot of it just felt like uh, part of the marketing programs that marketing that they've been doing. It just kind of felt like, okay, you're trying to market something to me right now. So I don't know. It was okay. It wasn't the best. Um, and I really think that doing some things like what I've talked about would really have anchored it into something that would have made up for its other ways, its other faults. So I'm gonna start jabbering, and thank you for listening. The three of you who did, uh, love, peace.
Do you think of me like I dream of you? Do you wish you were here like I wish I was with you? You love me before. Do you love me now? Does love ever end? When two hearts have torn away, or does it